Hey everyone, Amanda here, and we are going to be getting our webinar started in just a couple of minutes. So stay tuned, and I will be with you in just a minute. Hey everyone who's joining us, we're going to get started at 1:30 on the dot. So thanks for being here early, and we will get started in just a minute. All right, hey everybody, we are going to get started. Welcome to the Leader Interest Meeting webinar. I'm very anti-meeting the older I get. I saw a meme that said if the meeting doesn't have food, then it needs to be an email, and I really believe that. And so I hope that by coming to you via webinar, it's going to be more convenient for you. I know the Ravens are playing today. I'm not an NFL fan. I am a college football fans, specifically Alabama. So please, please, please pray for Tua. Please pray for Tua. All right. So if you are watching us while you're watching the game, thank you for sacrificing. And I'm going to make this quick because I've got a nap to get to. But today the win is that you would walk away with a clear understanding of what it takes to lead a group here at Mosaic, and kind of like with an idea of whether or not you want to take that next step. Because we would love to have you. So I'm going to go through a couple of talking points, and at the end you can submit questions, and if anybody submits any questions, I will go ahead and answer them, unless they're weird, in which case I'll be like, that's a weird question, and move on. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our Mosaic Groups ministry exists to create community and help people take a step toward Jesus. And Carl talked about it today. Our groups are how you find your crew here at Mosaic. And we know that one of the number one indicators of whether or not somebody is going to stick around here at Mosaic is if they have a friend. And in a church this size, it is ever more important that we are more community-based than ever, that we are more relational than ever, that it is easier than ever to find friends, because this lobby is intimidating, that auditorium is intimidating, and we want to break down barriers by making it as easy as possible for people to meet people here in the lobby so that they have somebody to sit with and they don't have to stand awkwardly holding a coffee and pretending to be talking on their phone because they don't have anybody else to talk to. So that's why our groups exist, is to create community and then step toward Jesus. This is really intentional language here. I don't expect that in a group people are going to be experiencing a spiritual awakening every week for 12 weeks straight. Instead, I want to know, is it possible for us as leaders to help the people in our group take one more step toward Jesus, to follow him just 1% more? And so that can look like joining a serving team. That can look like reading the Bible 3 days out of 5. That can look like getting baptized, sure. But are they taking a step toward Jesus? And I'll get into this a little bit later, but as leaders, Carl talked about it today, what I'm saying to a group when I put you in leadership is, hey, do what Amanda does, and you'll be more like Jesus. And the reason why I use that mentality is because that's the mentality that Paul used. He said, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. And so as leaders, we are walking towards Jesus. And when people come into our groups and come under our authority, it's our hope and our prayer that they would walk in our direction as we walk towards Jesus, just one step more. And so that is... that's the vision for our Mosaic groups. And as we saw today, again, I mean, who wasn't so pumped to have like live teaching again? It was awesome. I was like, oh, I miss this so much. But as we saw in that story today from Mike DeGiorgio, like life change is happening. And I'm so encouraged to see his story and how like being in a group is redefining redefining fatherhood for him in so many really powerful ways. And so we get to be a part of that as group leaders. We get to be on the ground level of people experiencing community, and redefining in a lot of ways, demystifying and debunking some lies that they've held about Jesus and about God. So it's pretty amazing to get to be a part of. So let's get into some of the logistics. The schedule for our groups ministry is typically a 3-semester, 12-week semester or trimester. And so we launch fall groups, winter groups, and summer groups, and they run for 12 weeks. Heading into 2020, that's going to shift a little bit. We're still going to go with the seasons, but we're going to be a little bit more forgiving to people's calendars. So instead of launching groups in September, for instance, which is what we've done forever, we're going to launch in October and run through to December. For the winter, put a pin in winter. We're going to talk about that in a minute. For the summer, we're going to be doing June and July with a break for August. So it's going to be a little bit different heading into 2020 in order to just, again, like I said, be more forgiving of people's calendars, and also just have our groups hopefully fall in rhythm with people's calendars a little bit more naturally. Now, winter. Carl talked about it today. I'm so pumped. I'm also so nervous and like excited and just for what's coming down the pipeline. So for our winter semester, we're going to be doing a 6-week semester. So it's a 6-week commitment. So now is the time to try out leading a group, if you ask me. But it's going to launch February 2nd, and it's going to go through March. I believe it's the 3rd. But whatever 6 weeks after February 2nd is, that's when it ends. And it is a video curriculum. It's going to be taught by myself, Carl, and Jonathan. And it will be sent directly to your phone. And there will be a discussion guide on your phone as well. So you push play, and you can either stream it on your phone, on your tablet, or cast it up onto your TV. Some people will have the option of, let's say you're like meeting at Guinness, you can text the video out to your group earlier that day or like earlier that week. And they can come having already watched it, and you just do the discussion. So there's some options, some flexibility there. And like Carl said, it's going to be in line with what we're learning on the weekend and this daily devotional that we're going to be putting out. And it's the identity journey. It is going to be a look into answering the questions of who am I and whose am I? Because when we get those questions right and we know the truth about those questions, everything else kind of falls in the line. So I'm really excited about this. And today Carl talked about hosts. So I want to give some clarity to that. A host is somebody who's going to be filling their own group. A host is not a vetted leader. They haven't gone through the application process. This is me saying, I have some buddies at the gym who I think would benefit, and I would benefit from watching these really quick, relevant, practical teachings, and just discussing this together. This is a facilitator, not a leader necessarily. This is just people getting together and saying, I have questions about this. Do you have questions about this? Do you want to come over to my house? And we can like do a dinner once a week for 6 weeks. So that's the host. And so you might be wondering, well, like, why wouldn't I just host if I don't have to go through the application and interview process? That's a great question. You could just host, and that would be great. We need about 300 of those. So if you want to host, that's great. You can absolutely do that, and I'll give some next steps for that at the end. But we need about 100 group leaders. We need 100 group leaders to commit to leading groups. And the biggest difference for this is these are vetted leaders, and these are groups that are going to be advertised on the website. And so let's say you don't know anybody yet. There are 100 groups for you to choose from that have different demographics. So this one is for mothers. This one is for single guys. This one is for husbands. Like all these different demographics. So you can find the one that works for you. We want to offer 100 of those groups on our website. So a hosted group will not be offered on the website. The host is responsible for filling their group. A group led by group leaders is going to be on the website, led by vetted leaders, and filled through like advertising. Like we'll talk about it from stage if you want to join, like we always have. Like if you want to join a group, head to mosaicchristian.org/groups and sign up. And so we need 100 of those. As of right now, we have 77. And so somebody else do the math, but we need a couple more. And so that is what I'm hoping you guys will consider and commit to. It is more of a process, and there is more accountability, but we need it. So I hope you're open to that. All right, so I'm looking at my notes. I'm not texting, just so you know. Let's see. We talked about the winter semester, the identity journey, 6 weeks, video curriculum, host versus leader. Great, I'm doing great. Okay, so I want to talk quickly about CCB. That is our church's database, in case you don't know. Chances are you have an account, even if you haven't accessed it yet. And this is where we hold basically like our church's database. So like phone number, emails, all that stuff. People sign up through CCB. And so your group, should you choose to lead, your group would be created in CCB and then advertised on the website accordingly. And the administrative tasks that we ask of our leaders is very intentionally low. You guys have lives. I get that. I'm not trying to add one more thing unnecessarily to your plate. I want the most difficult part of leading groups not to be the administrative, like hoopla, but instead the most difficult part to be leading people who are messy. Like that should be the hardest thing you have to do. And so we work very hard to make it very simple for you to lead a group. And so I'm sorry, I just have to jump on this quick soapbox and then I'm going to jump back up. The entire staff works hard to make it as simple as possible for you to be on a serving team or lead a group because we want it to be simple. It's not always easy, but we want it to be simple. And so when, you're a director who like oversees your serving team, or your coordinator who oversees your serving team reaches out, we're only doing it because we have to, and because we want to make it simple for you. So that's the end of my soapbox. We made it super easy administratively for you to lead a group. We have people who will input your group into CCB. Really the only thing you're responsible for is emailing the people who sign up for your group saying, hey, we're going to meet at this time, this place, bring your Bible and your dog. Let's say if you're a dog walking group, and I'll see you there. So you'll be responsible for emailing throughout the weeks, saying, hey, yes, we're still meeting. Because it's interesting, if you don't say, yes, we're meeting, people will assume you're not meeting. And I don't know why, but you email or text throughout the week saying, hey, we're here, or we're meeting. Also following up, just like if somebody shares in a group like, hey, I had to have a difficult conversation with my boss this week. As a group leader, it's our responsibility and like our privilege to remember those little details and text them throughout the week and say, hey, I know you're having that difficult conversation this week. This verse really encouraged me when I had conflict a couple months ago. And so I just wanted to share it with you, and I'm praying for you. And so that is the resource that's available to you through CCB. The other administrative task that you would need to complete is your attendance. And so this looks super simple. It's literally just clearing out your roster of anybody who didn't show or like went MIA. I know what you're thinking. Who would sign up for a group and then never show up? I don't know. But I've got a whole list of people who signed up and then never showed up. I don't know. It's weird. It happens. And it's okay. So as a group leader, you'd be responsible for removing those people from your roster. And as, again, Carl said today, he set me up so well for this webinar. But as Carl said today, we count the number of people who actually attended groups, not the number of people who signed up. And so you're probably wondering, like, I don't know how to do any of that stuff on CCB. I don't even know if I have an account. That's totally reasonable. We actually create how-to videos that are super simple. You can follow, again, they'll be texted to you, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Group Leader Central, where all of these videos are kept. But these videos show you how to complete these tasks. So again, it's a way for us to resource you well. And again, make it as simple as possible, because we want the most difficult part to be dealing with messy people. All right, so that leads me to the Group Leader Central. Group Leader Central is where we store these how-to videos on CCB. It's where we share cool stories of life change that we're experiencing. It is where we share different Bible plans on YouVersion that have been helpful to us as leaders. We do throwback sermons on the GLC. It's been a really great resource. This is also going to be where we store the videos for the 6-week curriculum, the identity curriculum in the winter time. So like, let's say you're like me and you get a text from me and it has the video for this week. You look at it and you're like, oh, this looks great, blah, blah, blah. Amanda's hair looks awesome. Can't wait to watch it, right? And then you forget about it and then you lose it because you text a million people. No worries. You can go to the GLC and the video will be linked right there. And so that's something that you'll have access to. It's typically password protected, because I like to talk about other people on there. No, I'm just kidding. It's typically password protected, but because we're going to be having hosts and hopefully quite a few hosts, it's just going to be open to the public. And so you'll have access to it that way. So that's a ministry overview. Let me just make sure I haven't gotten any questions yet. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about leader expectations. A lot of our leader expectations can be broken down into the 3 C's of leadership: character, competency, and chemistry. And so character, we see, we want you to be above reproach. Like I said, we're saying follow this person's example as they follow the example of Christ. And so I need to be able to say with confidence, just do whatever this person does and you're going to be okay. And so we ask that you audit yourself and ask if you can confidently give that challenge to your group. And this isn't me saying you need to be perfect. That's not what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for excellence in character and vulnerability in mistakes. And I think that's important too. I think one of the most powerful lessons we're teaching our almost 4-year-old son right now is when to say, I messed up as a parent. I think that I didn't really have that as a parent. My mom and dad were kind of like, what's the word? Lack of sleep, because I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old. But like, my parents never made mistakes seemingly. And like, you can never question a parent, and you could not, like, they were always right. And so I think it's really powerful for us as leaders when we say, I've messed up, will you forgive me? And so I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for excellence in character and vulnerability in mistakes. So that's a little bit about character. We also ask that leaders are generous. And so as leaders, we set the pace for our church when it comes to giving and serving at Mosaic. And so some leaders have gotten confused. They thought like, okay, well, I'm leading this semester, so that means I'm not going to serve on the weekend. No, that is not accurate. That is not what I want at all. The most important thing we do at Mosaic occurs on the weekend. We had 4 baptisms this weekend. There's nothing more important than what we do on the weekend of declaring Jesus is Lord and sharing the good news. And so if it is a choice for you, like I can either lead a group or serve on the weekends, serve on the weekends. I'm going to tell you to serve on the weekends 4 times out of 5. Every once in a while, there's like a unique situation. And so I'm up for having that conversation. But as leaders, we need to be serving on the weekends and setting the pace for others. Because again, harkening back to the vision is to create community and help others take a step toward Jesus. If we're not taking those steps ourselves, how could we possibly say to the next person, yeah, serve on a serving team on the weekend, or give financially if we're not doing that ourselves? And so we do ask that you are giving as well financially to Mosaic. I will never know if you're tithing. I won't go into that much detail. And I don't even check whether or not you are giving. I ask, are you giving? And it's, you're the ones who tell me. And so we do want you to be giving at Mosaic. One, because like that's, again, mainly it's because Jesus says where your treasure is there, your heart will be also. And so we do want people walking in obedience and giving to the local church. So there's that. We ask that you be generous. Talking through competency. Leading a group at Mosaic doesn't have to be as intimidating as it sounds at times. I don't want you to be intimidated by this. We're, especially this upcoming winter, like we're going to equip you so well. We're going to resource you so well. Competency looks like reviewing the how-to videos on how to operate in CCB. It looks like knowing how to, like, having competency with the technology behind it. And that's about it. Like, it's super simple. A lot of people think, well, I don't know how, like if somebody asks me a question, I'm afraid I'm not going to have an answer, and that's okay. That's okay. Last night I was at a Friendsgiving and somebody asked, so is God going to give people another chance after they die to go to heaven? And I was like, should you really be asking this question after you just did a beer bong? I don't know if we're going to like remember it. They did a beer bong, not me. No, thank you. But that was a question is really challenging. I shared with him that, there's some conflicting beliefs when we look at scripture, like some people have pulled different things from it. But ultimately I said, I don't know the answer to all of these questions. He was like, how do you blaspheme the Holy Spirit? And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. Where are you reading this stuff? I mean, I know the Bible, but it was just like really intense questions for like a Friendsgiving on a Saturday night. But it's being competent enough to say, I don't know, and being humble enough to say, I don't know. So when you think like, oh man, are they going to be asking me crazy questions? They might. And it's okay to say, I don't know the answer. Can I get back to you on that? I'm going to talk a little bit about how we resource you when people ask crazy questions. So competency, and finally chemistry. So here's the thing with chemistry. I don't have great chemistry. Let me think of a better way to say this. So when I look at our group leaders, we have like almost 200 group leaders. I'm not friends with all the group leaders. I don't have great chemistry with all the group leaders, and that's okay. I'm not looking for people to have great chemistry with me. I'm looking for people who have social chemistry and have good like emotional intelligence and good social cues. And let me be clear, that's not like, really perfect etiquette. It's not that. It's, how to read a room. You know how to tell if somebody's like kind of uncomfortable with the questioning. You're able to say, hey, you seem like you're having a hard day. Can I help you with something? Side note, do not say, you look tired. Nobody likes that person. Don't walk up to somebody in your group and be like, you look tired. Don't do that. That's like the worst thing ever. People would say that to me after I just had a baby and be like, yeah, I know, I'm tired. Instead of saying, you look tired, say, hey, can I bring you dinner this week? Or is there something specific I can be praying for you this week? And so chemistry is knowing how to be a friend, really. And so we're asking you to be real with your group. Your group will only be as open and vulnerable as you. And so we're asking you to set the pace with that. We're also going to ask that you be consistent, that you're, like I said, communicating throughout the week. And when people don't show up, following up with them and saying like, not where were you, which is like what I'm inclined to do because I'm like a recovering legalist, but instead say, how are you? Is everything okay? And so we want you to be consistent, but then we also want you to be spontaneous. And so there's nothing, so your group expects to hear from you about group stuff, but if you connect with them randomly throughout the week about life stuff, that's where you're going to build equity. That's where you're going to build equity with them. And with that equity comes influence. And with that influence comes the ability to help people take that step toward Jesus. So that's a little bit about the expectations. Let me see, giving and serving. Oh, I can't believe I skipped this one. This one is probably one of the more important ones. We also ask that you've been conscientiously baptized. And so having made the decision and having believed and repented, gotten baptized is what I mean by conscientiously baptized. And so some people will say, I was just having this conversation this week, I was baptized as a baby and then confirmed in like my preteen years. And like, I believed it when I got confirmed. This was me making my choice. And I respect that. I do ask, though, that all of my leaders are obeying what Scripture says about baptism. And when we look at Scripture, we do see a pretty clear call to believe first, repent first, and then be baptized. And so we do ask that you're conscientiously baptized. If you're like, well, I've never done that, but I'm open to that, I'm also the person that you talk to about that, so we can have that conversation as well. I also ask, as a group leader, that you take care of yourself. If you burn out, that's on you. And I don't want my group leaders to burn out. And, but I also can't keep track of all of you and say, like, you know, like I said, it's 200 people. I can't keep track and make sure you're taking breaks when you need to take breaks. I think it's a good rule of thumb to serve 2 out of 3 semesters a year. Although I have one group leader who is phenomenal. She is excellent. She's like top 10 of my group leaders, but leading groups does not give her a lot of life. She knows that she's gifted in it though. And so she leads once a semester. And I know that that's the boundary that she set. And I wish it was more because she's so amazing. But I'm not going to push on that. She's given me 1 semester. I'm going to take it and be happy with it. And so you know what your limits are. And you know what boundaries you need to draw. And I think of it kind of like ministry is like your job, in the sense that your job will take whatever you give. And so if you say, I'm going to work late, and I'm going to give it my workout hour that I would have spent at the gym, I'm going to give this to my job. Or I'm going to work late and I'm going to sacrifice my kids' soccer game to do this. Ministry is kind of the same way. It will take whatever you give. And at the end of the day, when you're burned out and you haven't been to your kid's soccer match and you haven't been to the gym, that's going to be on you, not the ministry. Excuse me. So you can take that one for free. That's just career advice. All right, so I expect you to take care of yourself. Some things to know, to know of like whether or not you'd be a good leader. You'd be a good leader if you care about people. If you'd be a good leader if you've experienced the benefits of community and walking with Jesus. Let's say like you already have your friends, like you already have your crew. But you want others to experience that. I oftentimes, when I lead a group, I'm not necessarily looking for my crew. I have my girls, I have my people, but I'm helping to facilitate an environment where other people can get that. So if you care about people not being lonely, you'd be a good group leader. You'd also be a good group leader if you do want to make friends. When I was 20-something, like in my early 20s, single without kids, I would stand in the lobby and think, I am the only person who is single here without kids. And so I led a group called Single Ladies Boot Camp in an effort to meet other single ladies. And so if you're feeling a little bit lonely, or you're feeling like, I just cannot find any couples to hang out with, like my husband and I, we really want to make some friends who are couples, then lead a group 100%. I don't think that's selfish at all. You would also be a good group leader if you're willing to live in the gray and not always have the answer. Leading a group can be very gray. So as somebody who is very black and white, like I said, recovering legalist, somebody who's very black and white, this is the one where I struggle the most, because I'm like, just do what I say. I don't understand. If you just do what I say, your life will get better. And I wish I were joking, but that's actually genuinely how I feel. And that's like where the Lord is like convicting me and challenging me. But if you are willing to live in the gray, you don't have to be good at it. That's like me. You don't have to be good at it. But if you're willing to, then I think you'd be great for leading a group. All right, some things to know. As a group leader, there have been times where I have had to ask leaders to take breaks. And here are the 3 main reasons that I would ask somebody to take a break from leading. And this, I want to be clear, taking a break is not a euphemism for a timeout or firing. I really do genuinely view it as a break, in the hopes that we'd be able to get people back onto leading. And so I would ask somebody to take a break for moral failing. The first C was character. If I learn of a character failing or moral failing, we are going to have a conversation about it. We're going to talk about it, and there's going to be so much grace and there's going to be so much truth. And so I don't want people like living in fear, like, oh, if I get in trouble, Amanda's going to find me. Absolutely not. Like, I don't want you to be afraid of that. We're just going to have a conversation, and we're going to talk through next steps for how to get life back on track. So moral failing. I've asked people to take breaks for incendiary social media practices. So that could be posting maybe just a little too much skin, and not being willing to discuss why that might not be wise. We're heading into election season. And so if somebody is continually posting, you know what they are. You know those kinds of posts that are just like not productive. They're not true. No, maybe not. I shouldn't say not true, but not loving, not kind, not honorable, not lovely, all those things that we see in that Philippians verse. I'll ask people if they're not willing to stop it to take a break. I'll also ask people to take a break if there's crisis in the marriage or crisis in the family, because your marriage and your family is so much more important to me than what you can give me as a leader. I care more about your marriage. I care more about your relationships than I do about you leading a group. And so I would ask you to take a break to care for that. So those are a couple. I've also asked people to take breaks if their theology shifts. We're going to talk a little bit about the application next, but I asked some pretty intense questions in the application because I want to make sure we're all lined up theologically on the areas where we need to be lined up theologically. And there have been people whose ideals and beliefs have shifted. And so I've said, let's take a break from that, and let's keep having these conversations. It isn't like, well, I can't be your friend anymore. I'm not going to lead you anymore. It is let's take a break and let's reassess and let's talk about this. So those are the ways I will ask you to take a break. All right, this application process. It's pretty simple. It's a two-step process. You complete an application that asks, like I said, some pretty intense questions. We're going to ask you about your serving role. We're going to ask you about giving. We're going to ask you about your baptism. And then we're also going to ask you some lifestyle questions. We ask about whether or not you're engaging in any sort of premarital sex. We're going to ask you about your beliefs regarding God's design for sex. And we'll ask about any sort of like history of illicit drug or pornography use, and then steps you've taken to stay sober from that. We're going to talk about drinking and how often you drink, and how, when was the last time you drank to get drunk? So we really do get into it. And then after that application process, it goes into an interview process. And I want to make this clear. With the application and the interview process, this isn't me finding out, are you good enough? This is me trying to determine the best that I can with the resources available to me, if you're in a healthy spot to lead. So I'm not determining worth, I'm determining health. Leadership within a church is a huge responsibility. It is a heavy burden. It is an intense burden. And I want to make sure you're healthy enough to carry that burden before I place it on you. So that's what we're doing with this application and the interview process. The interview is meant to not be intimidating. You either meet with me, or it's a phone interview. You either meet with me over the phone or with one of the coordinators. If you're a guy, I try and match you with a guy coordinator. So I don't want you to be afraid of like not measuring up or any. I just don't want you to be afraid. We're all friends here. I'm a weirdo, like sitting alone in an office laughing at my own jokes by myself. Like, I don't want you guys to be intimidated. I do want this to be a really relational process. So please, don't feel intimidated by that. It's just gonna be a conversation. I'll be chill. Coordinators, we have coordinators here for our groups. Our coordinators are responsible for caring for you, for honoring you, and for checking in with you. And so they, when you become a group leader, you're assigned a coordinator, and that coordinator will care for you as is needed. They're going to check in on you. They're going to ask you questions like, in the last 30 days, how many have you spent in the Word? And again, this isn't to see like, are you doing what you're supposed to do? But rather, it's kind of like the best way for us to take your temperature spiritually is, are you in the Word? And are you applying it? Not just in the Word, are you applying it to your day-to-day life? So that's a coordinator's role. If you have questions, like if somebody asks you a crazy question about like the resurrection and what's going to happen and is God going to talk to us, blah, blah, blah. Your coordinator is who you reach out to, and they're going to take care of you. And they might say, I don't know, I'll find out though. And then also I'm available to you. As the group's director, I work really hard to connect and interact with as many group leaders as possible. I have a goal of meeting with 5 group leaders a week. And so on the GLC, on the Group Leader Central that I was talking about earlier, there's an option to like sign up for coffee with me. And so like I try to make myself available to group leaders that way as well. I already talked about the onboarding process a little bit with your coordinators. You'll be assigned a coordinator, and then there's a new leader orientation, and that's super simple. That's a podcast that you listen to that I created, and so you'll listen to this podcast, and it will give you more nuts and bolts, more like into the granularity of the ins and outs of leading a group. But again, if a meeting doesn't have food, I think it should be an email, and who wants to do one more meeting, especially in orientation? I bailed on all my orientations for college, so I don't want to do one, so why would you? And that is why it's a podcast. You can listen to it on your way to work, and then contact me if you have questions. So that takes me to the end of my spiel. I'd like to open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and input them now. And I'm just going to put this right here. So if you guys do ask any questions, it will show me. I will say I hate waiting in awkward silences for questions. So I'll give you like a couple of minutes. And so it's like speak now or forever hold your peace. Some quick things while you guys are typing up all your questions. Like I said earlier, if you do only want to host a group and not lead a group, again, the difference between that is a group led by a Mosaic group leader will be advertised on the website, and a hosted group you'll be responsible for filling. If you want to host a group only, all you have to do is text that number 72345, 72345, and text hashtag ID 2020, hashtag ID 2020. And that will put you in the pipeline, and we'll be able to take care of you that way as a host. And that's totally chill. We still want a lot of those, so that's an option. All right, so I had a question. So will all the upcoming groups be doing the same curriculum going through? Yes. Okay. So the question is, will all the upcoming groups be doing the same curriculum going along with the sermon series? Yes. All of the groups are going to be doing the same curriculum. I'm still trying to figure out if we're going to do FPU this winter. I'm not sure. I don't have the answer for that yet. But all of the other groups, yes, will be doing this identity journey curriculum. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that the format can't be different. So I love meeting around a fire. So what I'm thinking is like, I don't know if this is going to work yet. I haven't asked my husband, so don't share this with him. Last time he actually watched this webinar secretly, so I don't know if he's watching it. If you are, hey, babe. What I want to do is a fireside chat. And so like we're all just going to like watch the video, but like by a fire. I know some people are still going to be meeting at a bar and doing their group at Guinness. And so they'll watch the video prior to and then go to the bar and hang out. If some people want to do like a hiking group and discuss the curriculum, they can do that. So it's all the same curriculum, but it can be packaged however you want. So that's the answer to that question. I don't have any other questions coming in. So again, I'll give it just another minute while I review to see if there are any other things I want to point out. I don't think so. So talking through next steps, if you are interested in going through the process with me, you're going to go to mosaicchristian.org/lead-a-group. All one word, no dashes or anything, mosaicchristian.org/lead-a-group. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat. Let's see if it'll do it for me. Come on, little buddy. Doesn't let me copy and paste, so I have to type it out like it's 1995. Lead a group. All right, so I just sent you the link to that. And again, if you're like, oh, I really do think I just want to host, then you are going to text 72345, and you're going to text hashtag ID 2020, and that will prompt you with your next steps. So it is 2:07. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any more chats coming through. So I will stay on for a couple more minutes, but this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm also going to include my email address here, so if you have any other questions, you can contact me at that email. I'll also give you my cell phone number. Don't go crazy with it. Text me a bunch. Oh, I have one more question. Is the church open as a place to host on evenings? That's a great question. We are not open to hosting on the, we don't host individual groups during the week. we host our student groups on Monday, and then we have our band practices, and to host a group at Mosaic would be a lot of like behind the scenes work. So we do not do that. We will, however, be doing something called, we're going to be trying to do something. We'll see if it works. We're going to be doing something called a mega group. And so it's going to be a group that meets at Mosaic. Up to 100 people can sign up for it. It will have childcare available. They'll watch the videos, and then they'll divide up into 10 or so smaller groups. And so that is what we're going to be doing on those other 2 nights of the week. So great question. Thanks for asking questions, Yansis. All right, so I think that is all that I have for you now. Again, be praying for Tua from Alabama. Good luck to the Ravens. I've sent you all my contact information, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. All right, have a good one. You're welcome, Jasmine. You're welcome, Yansis. All right, talk to you guys soon.